Mr. President, I seek leave to make a short statement.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted. Senator Dastyari.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to make a short statement. Let me begin at the outset by saying that I've never had a briefing by any Australian security agency ever. I've never passed on classified information, and I've never been in the possession of any. As I've repeatedly said, if I was ever given any security advice from any agency, I would follow it to the letter. I want to be absolutely clear. I could not be a prouder Australian. My family was lucky enough to leave a war-torn Iran to start a new life in this amazing land. I find the inferences that I'm anything but a patriotic Australian deeply hurtful. Nonetheless, I'm not without fault. In June last year, I held a press conference where I made comments that were in breach of Labor Party policy. I have never denied this. The price I paid for that was high, but appropriate. More recently, my characterisation of that press conference was called into question. A recent audio recording shocked me as it did not match my recollection of events. I take responsibility for the subsequent mischaracterisation. When a public official makes a statement that contradicts events, there are consequences. For me, the consequence was being called last night by Bill Shorten and being asked to resign from my position in the Labor Senate organisational leadership. With the indulgence of the Senate, I want to acknowledge my amazing wife and 2 daughters who keep having to put up with the heightened spotlight. Hannah is now 6 and has to answer questions in the playground. That breaks the heart of any father. Today we have the news of a Royal Commission into Australian banking, which is a victory for the many victims and those of us who have fought for justice. With the upcoming New England and Bennelong by-election, I always intend to put the party first and do not want to be a distraction. I will continue to work as I always have done for the people of New South Wales.
Senator Brandis.
I ask that further questions be placed upon the notice paper.
Pursuant to order adopted earlier in the day, I call Senator Dastyari.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the Senate for the opportunity to speak again on this matter. I note that only limited opportunity was provided to me to prepare this response. As I previously stated, I became acquainted with Mr. Huang Zhangmo as he was a prominent local Chinese community leader in Sydney. As the Senate will appreciate, there are over 1 million Chinese Australians. It is not uncommon for there to be large community functions regularly at which Chinese community leaders are present. As the General Secretary of the Australian Labor Party New South Wales branch, I would regularly be in contact with representatives of every community in New South Wales. These included ethnic, corporate and community organisations. Mr. Huang Zhangmo was also a regular attendee at Labor Party functions. I noted he also attended many Liberal Party functions too. I have here a document I would like to table of donations data downloaded from the AEC website for the benefit of the Senate.
Is leave granted to table the document? Leave is granted.
A series of allegations were published in the Fairfax media on the 29th of November 2017 regarding a meeting between myself and Mr. Huang. As I told Four Corners months ago, after the events of last year, I spoke to Mr. Huang to tell him that I did not think it was appropriate that we have future contact. I thought it was a matter of common courtesy to say this face to face. Neither my office or I have spoken to Mr. Huang since. This information has been publicly available since June. I utterly reject any assertion that I leaked intelligence information to Mr. Huang. Let me reiterate that I have never been provided intelligence information by any Australian security agency ever. I have never passed on intelligence information. I have never been in the possession of any. In June 2016, I held a press conference that was targeted at Australian Chinese media and the Chinese Australian community. Mr. Huang was included in the press conference as the presence of a prominent Chinese community leader would help attract better media coverage from Chinese language media and their target audience. This is standard media practice for Australian political parties from across the spectrum when seeking to engage with multicultural communities. I do not have the full details of what was said at the press conference. However, I understand footage has been disseminated to media outlets. The topics that were prominent in the Chinese media at the time of the press conference included the Australia-China FTA, negative gearing, the new Chinese ambassador, the South China Sea, Pauline Hanson before she became Senator Pauline Hanson, and significantly controversy over the Safe Schools program. At the press conference, I made comments that were in breach of Labor Party policy on issues relating to the South China Sea. While I do not have a copy of the transcript of the press conference, I understand a copy of those comments has been disseminated to media outlets. I have never denied that contradicting Labor policy was a significant mistake, and I resigned from the Labor Party front bench over it last year. I have been a member of the Labor Party since I was 16 years old. I have held numerous positions, including the General Secretary of the New South Wales branch, and have had the privilege of being elected as a senator. I understand the importance of collective policy development and the consequences of breaching party discipline. I let myself down and my party down by contradicting party policy, and I paid the appropriate penalty. More recently, my characterisation of the press conference was called into question. A recent audio recording shocked me as it did not match my recollection of events. I personally take responsibility for the subsequent mischaracterisation. When a public official makes a statement that contradicts events, there are consequences. For me, the consequence was being called last night by my leader, Bill Shorten, and being asked to resign from my position in the Labor Senate organisational leadership. I accept the decision of my leader, and accordingly today I resign my Senate leadership positions. On the 20th of November 2014, I declared to the Register of Senators' Interest that Mr Huang's Yuhu Group had made a payment on my behalf for settlement of an outstanding legal matter. This payment has been on the public record for over 3 years. The existence of this payment has been reported in the media as far back as an article published by Mr James Massola in the Sydney Morning Herald 18 months ago on the 28th of March 2015 entitled "Donor Stepped In to Help Dastyari," which I table for the benefit of the Senate. With leave
granted? Leave is granted.
For the sake of completeness, other gifts and hospitality from companies associated with Mr Huang are also disclosed on my statement of interest for this Parliament and the previous Parliament in accordance with my obligations to the Senate, noting that I was first entered the Senate in 2013. I thank the Senate.